Nils, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Oscar. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So this is the fourth episode of Conversations with Guests. The previous one was with Alex, but today I'm very happy to introduce Nils, one of, according to me, the most proactive and young blood out there, which can really make a ruckus, as you might say. So could you tell us a little bit more of who you are and what you're doing at the moment, Nils?
Yeah, so who am I? I'm 18 years old and I'm studying at Blackebergs Gymnasium. I'm at my third and final year of Swedish high school. I was born in Stockholm in 2003. And after living in Stockholm for 5 years, me and my family, we moved to Vienna, where I spent 3 years. Then we moved to Berlin, where we lived until 2015. And then we returned to Sweden in 2015. So quite a large part of my identity is that I'm half German, and I also speak fluently German. Yeah, that's one of my one of the main skills I've had in my life is to be bilingual and being able to put my thoughts into different languages and reflect in various ways on them. So apart from that, I would consider myself a learner, really. I think it's in my Twitter bio too. It's like where I'm right now, I try to learn as much as possible because I'm 18 years old, right? I live in Sweden. It's like I don't need to work. I don't need to earn money. It's like what I would earn right now it's unimportant when we think about where we want to be in where I want to be in 15 years or so. So my current focus is to learn as much as possible, and I try to spend my time where I can learn stuff. So that's pretty much my current aim in a nutshell, I guess.
So for those of you listening right now, I just want this fact to sink in. Nils is 18 years old. I mean, what did you do when you were 18 years old? And you just heard that Nils is doing a lot in terms of proactiveness and his ambition to learn a lot there. So I guess that there will be more to come in the next months and years or so. I look forward to another episode with you. But before we go too far time-wise, I just want to connect back to your experiences in Vienna and Berlin. You mentioned that you had some German experiences too. Could you tell us a little bit more about your experiences there and how you find the culture compared to Sweden? Because it might be interesting for many people to hear from your perspective, okay, what can you expect from Germany? What can you expect from Sweden? What should avoid in Germany and what should avoid in Sweden, etc. So please tell us.
So actually, it's quite a fun story because we often discuss this at family meetings or stuff like that when we meet other families that are also half German, half Swedish. In my opinion, the Swedish and the German culture and the Swedish and German way, they sort of complement each other. So in Sweden, we're very shy. We want to mind our own business. When we're commuting, everybody's looking at their phone and nobody says anything. It's dead silent. And when we are in public, we try to be invisible. And we always we respect the other people, and if we don't like something, we don't really say it. We're just silent. In Germany, it's quite the opposite. It's Germans, they are honest, brutally honest, and they often say what they think very directly. And this can be fun when the Swedish shyness and the German directness meet. Because Swedes, they think it's really both inappropriate to be so direct, and they feel really uncomfortable. And the Germans are okay, this guy isn't reacting, he's just saying okay, fine, he's not taking the conflict with me. So that's quite a interesting combination. So what I've learned from being in Germany and being in Vienna is firstly I guess I've become better at like adapting to new social environments because I've moved quite a lot, and moved around quite a lot. So when I'm here in Sweden, most people have like childhood friends. I also have childhood friends, but not like to the same degree, because I always had to make new friends. When I came to Vienna, I didn't have any friends there. When I came to Berlin, I didn't have any friends there. When I returned to Sweden, I barely had any friends, like only the childhood friends. So I was always like forced to make new friends, and I see that as a strength of mine to. I'm not a super like extrovert. I would consider myself an introvert, but I'm quite good at listening to new people and getting to know them.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to identify, like, okay, these are what Germans in general, that's very important, in general are.
Yeah.
And in Sweden, like in general, stuff like that. I just want to raise a little bit of a question, like, because I've heard also from my own studies of like, okay, different cultures and how they behave, stuff like that. Germany and Sweden are usually in favor of, for instance, like, okay, linearity, reliability, efficiency, all that kind of stuff, like in order to basically be punctual and make sure that everything gets done. Do you see that similarity, or is it more of a myth rather than the reality to see us as more cold and machine-like?
The Germans or the Swedes?
Both. So you can raise
Well,
it in both one.
yeah, Germans are known to not have like good humor and like being a little bit like robots. That's like the the normal, like the running gag, like the joke. And well, I don't have so good humor myself, so I guess that's true. But I'm only half German, so there's still hope left. However, like, yeah,
Yes, we'll
like
find out.
yeah, like the Germans, they have like a good moral at work, but I wouldn't really say there's a big difference in culture. I would like agree with you that they're quite similar, Swedes and Germans, in the way they work. In Germany, we still have this like more hierarchical like structure of like workplaces, and your like what education you have is more important. And like if you're a doctor or a professor, it's also like really important to like spell out your title and stuff like that, which is less important in Sweden. But at the same time, I'm like, I wouldn't really know because I haven't worked in Germany myself, and barely worked in Sweden, like just 1.5 years. But that's at least my view of the things right now. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. And it's also nice that you can pretty much communicate with all of them too. And as you probably said, either on or off cam, that it's very good to master like multiple languages in order to really enhance the thinking, stuff like that, which is something I want to come back to later. But before we do that, we want to once again highlight the fact that you're still in high school, or at least in what Sweden called gymnasium, which basically means, okay, if you're between 16 and 19 years of age, you're basically in there and learning a more advanced version of school. So could you tell us a little bit about, okay, how it is right now, what subjects you find most interesting? And if I understand correctly, it's all about doing the classic but dreaded high school work, or gymnasiearbete, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still 18, and like I haven't really accomplished anything yet. So I'm like, I want to be really slow with that and like humble about that. But so right now, I'm doing like, yeah, the gymnasiearbete, or as it's in English, I guess it's called like the high school main kind of task. Like it's a task you dedicate like 2.5 hours every week to. So honestly, I'm quite a slacker in school. I don't really I don't really put down so much time for school, and that's not because I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm a little bit bored by school, but at the same time, I'm pretty like I learn with ease, so I don't have to put down super much time to get the results I want. And I could be more ambitious in school, but for me, it's like I didn't really see the meaningful, like the meaning in giving it your all in school. So I'm like, I guess I would consider myself being like a tactical person in school, like putting enough work in for achieving the results I want, and not more than that. So yeah, right now we have like lots of like math and Swedish and English, like the basic subjects, but also like PE and stuff like that. But yeah, as you might guess, I'm more of a like social studies guy than a natural science guy, because I like to see how people interact more than how atoms interact. Yeah.
Although people consist of atoms in some details, but that's more of another interaction, if we have to be honest. But I want to like personally say that I think your strategy with school is quite good. I mean, it's good to still be above water, but other than that, it's very nice to build at such an early age a good, what you say, an identity, some kind of portfolio in the various case. And from what I've seen in your social media channels, I've been very impressed of what you've accomplished in the last, what you say, the last time or so. So I think that although it's good to be humble, it's also good to kind of recognize that the path is still going forward, which I find pretty illuminating. And you mentioned also before that you're very good at starting something new. So if I understand correctly, the concept for instance, like entrepreneurship, freelancing, creating is something that speaks of interest to you, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm good at starting something new. I guess I haven't founded my own company yet, so, and I haven't freelanced yet, so I'm like, I can talk, but I haven't done it yet. However, so yeah, I maybe am not like the best guy to ask for that, but I would consider myself as someone with like an entrepreneurial spirit, if that, like, I'm an entrepreneur at core, if that makes sense. Because I don't know, it's just I like to, for me, something that's very central is also when I think about the future, for me is like is freedom. And I've come to the conclusion that the greatest freedom I can achieve is by basically like having as much power as like freedom and as much power about power about my how I spend my own time as possible. Well, of course you have like relationships and boundaries, and yeah, you have some responsibilities, you will always have that. But I realized that I want to really be able to decide myself when I want to grow. So my current goal is to grow and maybe start something myself, either in the freelancing space, perhaps a small company, just trying it out, like not as a means to earn a lot of money, but as a means to like just getting a hang and like getting a basic understanding of how it is to be in that like executive position, and to take the decisions, and to see if I could have a business in 1 month without it going bankrupt. So it would be a fun experiment to try. So I'm having my eyes a little bit on that. I have a couple of books on starting startups at home, like Startup Owner's Manual by Steve Blank, I think. It's a really great book. I recommend it to anyone who wants to start their own business. And also Lean Analytics by, okay, I don't know by whom it is right now, but also a really great book on like using data for growing your startup faster, and also like the different types of metrics. And after reading those books, I realized that, and also like after gaining some basic insight into writing, I realized how many businesses that are like of large size are doing stuff wrong. And that, like, I go around and I don't go around, but I browse the internet, and so often I get to like the website of a company that I know is earning like, has like millions in revenue each year. And I think to myself, I could have written this copy better than they did. And often these businesses are like, they're quite old, so they haven't really like evolved, or like they haven't kept up with the pace of like the digital evolution. And like it's apparent that they haven't really hired like a freelancer or something, like just for like $2,000 to fix their site. But that gave me confidence in my own skills. So I guess I'll probably wait for now and try to learn more. But in the next few weeks, we'll probably see something happening for me.
What I really like about you is that you still have the gas pedal, and that's what's really important, to have this kind of action orientation and figure out as you go, because no one knows what's going to happen. You do not know, I do not know, even Bill Gates does not know, even yeah, although we could probably discuss about that. But my point is that you can always figure it out. So by actually taking steps into the unknown, into the shadows with your own torch, then you see like, okay, this is what resonates with me the most. This is where I want to go. And meanwhile, you have such a good trail of you behind that other people can kind of see like, oh, this sounds like a very good path. Maybe we should like see where it's going. And then you kind of can say, build the attention, stuff like that, to finally gain the autonomy, which is well deserved after a good solid run of both patience but also value creation. So
Yeah.
if we could let's see, because you mentioned copywriting and the fact that many older companies made, what you say, a more poorer choice on what to actually input in their text and stuff like that. Could you just to highlight a particular example? For instance, like, okay, this is like in general what I say, more like buzzwords and all that stuff like that, and give a little example of what you find to be the most repelling about this and what one could do better, some general principles.
Yeah, so like what I often see, and this is like really like the most basic level of copywriting, is like, and also of like branding, is like companies still talk about features instead of benefits. And you know, everybody who knows a thing or two about copy will be like, wow, I already knew that. And yeah, it's true, but it's super basic at the same time. When you like, especially cybersecurity programs or something like that, they usually are like, okay, we have 50,000 small service nodes protecting you against attacks from Russian hackers right now. And everybody's like, okay. And instead of just saying we do the security stuff so you can sleep well at night, they say like, we have these features, we have this IP64 kind of security level, and like the customers, they don't understand what they're getting. You really have to be like, because the customers, they don't care about like the specs, they care just about like if it solves the problem for them. And also when you go to like certain e-commerce sites or so, when they have the copy of the product itself, they write often about like the features instead of the benefits. So that's like the most basic thing that you like, if you have a website, and I would really like review if you're stating features or benefits. Also, the second most important thing, I guess, is like how important it is to be like clear about your value proposition and what your company actually does. So I think, if I recall correctly, every good value proposition should be like basically one sentence saying, what problem do you solve, for whom do you solve this problem, and why should they care? It's like, so if somebody goes to your website, Oscar, for example, they should be like, okay, thetotalliving.com, they should see you're writing articles about productivity and focus, and well, I couldn't really come up with a one-liner for that quickly, but it like the headline should be so, or like the one-liner should be so specific that any like potential client or prospect would go to the site and be like, this is written for me. And yeah, this is also like really basic copywriting stuff, but at the same time, it's often when you go to a company's website and you're just browsing and you're like, okay, what are you doing? Like, what's your main thing? And also, I think it really, some companies, they have so many like benefits stated on the website that they don't know, like you don't know as a customer what's their main benefit, what's the main benefit of using this product. And also that's why you should focus not on which problems your product solves, but which problem is like, what's like the main customer pain point that's solved by this product, the solution. Did you want to say something there, or?
No, you can just go ahead. I'm just fascinated to hear, like, because there are many valuable, what you say, nuggets of information. So let's continue the flow, so to speak.
Yeah, so for anybody that's more interested in like clarity and why like clarity wins on like branding, I would really recommend Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. We maybe can put that in the show notes too. It's a really like a great book, and basically the core thesis or like the core principle of the book is that brands shouldn't position themselves as heroes, but as guides. The customer is the hero. Like I work at customer service, we often hear like, yeah, customer is king and stuff like that. But branding and like positioning your brand and company as not like the hero. It's not like the customer won't go to you and be like, okay, wow, you're an amazing company, I really should buy something from you. It's like, rather they would be like, okay, I have a problem, who can help me solve my problem? And then your company should be there as like the best friend, like a guide, coming like, yeah, you know, I know you're experiencing this problem and it's hard, but maybe try out this solution for you that we have built. So it's like people, I think I heard this on like Tim Ferriss recently, they don't like to be sold on like products, however they like to be like both part of stories and also they like to hear stories. So like just talking about the customer's problem on site and addressing the problem and not being the hero but positioning yourself as the guide can basically help lots to like gain traction. Because otherwise it's like when you have a brand and you're saying, okay, so we're positioning yourself as the hero, we are disrupting this industry right now, then the customer is like, okay, I see, but what can you do for me? So I'm maybe getting a little bit repetitive right now, but I think you're getting the main point, that it's all about like being clear. And like customers, they have such a short attention span when they're on the website, on the web, when they're Googling something like blog on for productivity, and then they click on your site, thetotalliving.com. You have 5 seconds to impress them. It's like, you know, that when you're browsing yourself, like anybody listening to this, you can try it yourself. When you're browsing on site, like if you're shopping or like searching for information, within at maximum 5 seconds, your brain knows if it has found what it was looking for or not. So you have basically also a really good way to test your site if it's good is the 5-second test, like showing a campaign or like your the top of your site to a customer for 5 seconds, and then you ask them what do you remember, and then you see like where is their main focus and what's like the most attention drawing element on the site. So that's also a small trick, I guess, you could use to improve your site.
Yeah, I think it's very important to get the more, what you say, this mindset of, okay, maybe get off your own head a little bit, maybe try to see it from a fresh eye. And also, as you said, which is actually something I personally haven't heard about before, the 5-second test, like, okay, this is the first impression, and already there you can kind of sense like, okay, is this for me or is this not for me? And I will personally like go through the website and say, okay, and maybe apply this website, because we can all get better, and I certainly can too. So that's always something we could always strive to kind of see, like, okay, how does it look at right now? How do I want it to look for customers that I want to serve, and other people for that matter? And then one could be more, what you say, aware and more controlling, rather than just like hope like, okay, I write this and hopefully people will go in like bees into hives and stuff like that. So I think there are some valuable points right there. And of course, it's always nice to repeat them extra, but I think you can agree with that fact that what everyone who are both new and existing entrepreneurs can do is like regularly take time to go and see like, okay, this is like the customer's journey, and trying to, what you say, eliminate all different presuppositions about, okay, this is what it is, but really start with fresh eyes. It's like, okay, this is what I see, and what did I learn from that? And of course, it's good to introduce from new people as well. But would you say that this was a very good strategy to utilize frequently? And do you have other tactics or tips?
Yeah, so I would like to go back what you asked. Like initially, I was like, I would say the most important thing is still like getting out there and like publishing stuff, and like just making yourself visible online. So I would like, optimization is like the second step. So the same goes with my essays. Like the first 14 days, I just wrote like random content about different topics, and then after some time, you can look for data points and try to optimize. The thing is, it can be really difficult to optimize your website if you don't have a lot of like traffic, because you always want to have like a large enough number of users to see if like one change really is affecting the user behavior. Otherwise, it can just be due to like small sample size that you see a difference. So that's important to take into consideration. So what I've heard somewhere is that if you have a small site and you want to, like, if you have a small site and you don't have many visitors, you should try to do like drastic changes. Maybe do like A/B testing and making like really like large changes and see if they like drastically affect the results you're getting. I would say that optimization is like important. At the same time, it's something that people spend like their lifetime working on, or like for instance, like growth marketers, they are always thinking about, should we optimize the stuff we have, or should we try something new? Because optimizing, it's always like the returns are always diminishing, because logically you should always, like, if you every day make your site, if you remove the friction by 1% every day, then you have like a smaller and smaller, like after some time you will arrive at the solution that pretty much works. And then it's difficult to, how would I say, optimizing over time has diminishing returns, in one sentence. So I don't know if that answered your question, otherwise we could reiterate.
I think it was a very good thing to bring up as well, that sometimes you might want to kind of switch it up a little bit and see if it makes. And I also think it comes down to, okay, what do you want to portray versus, okay, what do you want to see other people perceive of you, so to speak. So I guess that's something that could be more of what you said, experimental features, trying on new clothes, making sure that, okay, this is the perfect, or not really perfect, but this is at the moment how I want the website to be more like mindful about like first impression stuff like that will be something that will be, what you say, very beneficial to get the right customers and viewers, so to speak.
Definitely. And also one thing I would like to add, now that we're already like talking about growth, is yesterday I had a chat with Eric Yang. You should really check him out on Twitter if you haven't heard of him yet. He's talking, he's like a marketer for a small startup called Barrelio, or Barrel, Barrelio they call it. And we spoke a little bit about like setting up experiments, because and Oscar, I think this goes hand in hand with like setting up yourself. I think you know much about this, like setting up yourself so that you basically get something out of a project, even if the project itself fails, like learning from your mistakes.
Exactly.
and like just setting up the changes on your site, not making like one huge bet on something, but like trying to every assumption you make. Now this is difficult when you're like a solopreneur, but if you're like a small team, that every assumption you make, you write it up. You write like a hypothesis, I think it's called, and then you say, okay, I have an assumption and I would like to make this change. And then you write like, okay, so how do I know if this change was significant or not? And then you determine like a data interval. And if the change, let's say you're like, okay, so people aren't signing up to my newsletter because we removed the 10% discount they get on their first order, something like that. And like seeing if, okay, 5% of my visitors subscribe to the newsletter when they were offered a 10% discount upon signing up. And then you saw that, okay, 3% signed up when they didn't get like this reward. And then you should think and like run the numbers and see like, okay, is it beneficial for us to keep this form? Like, is it beneficial for us to keep this discount because we acquire more emails, or is it beneficial for us to not keep this discount because we will earn more money on the orders and stuff like that, like the small calibrations and the click-through rate. Also like just doing some basic Google Analytics stuff on your site and like seeing where are the customers like dropping off. Like, is it so that on the Total Living, you offer coaching, right?
Not really right now. It's mostly more on the consulting side, together with blogging and podcasting as well. But the main element is the blogs at the moment. But there are also some opportunities for consulting too. I wouldn't say coaching because it's more of a different activity, so to speak, and with different outcomes. But both of them are in the current works.
Yeah, so I see then maybe you have like, I don't know how it looks on your site, but maybe let's say you have like a sign up form. So first you sign up for the newsletter, and then you have to enter like, you have like a large survey that you have like, before the consulting, I need you to fill in this info so I can give you a good briefing in the beginning. And let's say 30% of the visitors that reach that site are dropping off. Like just suddenly they're like leaving the site. Then you might be asking like, okay, this is a huge drop off. Where and why are people like quitting the site? Is there something I could optimize in the survey? Is there like in general, for example, the longer the survey you have, or like the more information the visitor has to enter, the higher the risk of them dropping off, because you have like higher friction to complete the activity that you need to do for a reward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think sort of.
So like either you need to have like a stronger incentive, or you need to higher the motivation, or you need to lower the friction. So there are like several ways to affect how the customers like behave on site. And like if you want to increase their motivation, it's like motivation is the metric for like how much, okay, no, this like, I don't know if it's a metric for, but as I remember it, motivation would in this sense be a metric for how much the customers want your specific solution. And it could be like, if your product is unique and you have a trashy website, the customers are likely to still buy your product because it's unique. But if you have like a trashy website, like in other markets when there's really high competition, you probably want to have like an up-to-date website with good copy and stuff like that, because otherwise you're out of the game. You'll have a you will have a competitor that does a better job and has like a better product, and you'll run out of business.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that these metrics of, for instance, for click-through rate, but also drop-off rate can be easily accessed with, for instance, Google Analytics and stuff like that, or other kinds of tools. So one question related to the copywriting and how to basically optimize the experience is how to interpret the data, because I truly like agree with many of what you say. But one thing that I personally think, like, okay, how can you analyze it in a way to really decide, okay, is it because I made this change, or is it because of another factor that I didn't take into account? So how do you kind of interpret and see, okay, is this a causal link that was probably caused by my recent change, or is it just luck? Where could all of us get the more, what you say, better judgment? Is it more on the testing?
Yeah, well, so first, it should be noted, I'm not an expert on this subject. What I've done is my expertise, or like the thing I know, comes from a small, it's called a mini degree from CXL marketing, about growth marketing. So I'm a beginner to this. But as far as I understand it, if you really want to make like a quick change, it's just like changing the mindset from trying to see if a change had an effect to like try to look for evidence that it didn't make a change. So like flipping the question around, it's not like, okay, did this have an effect? Rather it's like, okay, so what points to that this didn't have an effect? So you want to try to really like find evidence on the opposite. Like you try to be like, okay, finding evidence that doesn't support your hypothesis, if that makes sense. And then about making the decisions, I would say, so firstly, you have to have like statistical significance. It depends on the amount of visitors. Secondly, it's what you can do is, because in Google Analytics, you see like the drop off for like a whole site or so. You maybe want to have like less forms. You maybe want to like divide the, maybe you want to have one link for a form and then one link for like the sign up page and stuff like that. So you try to like isolate. I don't know if this makes super much sense, but you try to divide the different parts of the customer journey and like design unique pages for each one of them to see exactly what's happening. Because if you have everything going on one site, it will be harder to see. I'm not super familiar with this, but I guess you can set up events in Google Analytics that track certain actions and clicks. Another way to analyze user behavior would be to use tools like Hotjar. They give you like some recordings of visitors on the map, like how did they act with the mouse when they were on your site, and also like a heat map of what they're seeing. And like, I guess the most radical change you could make if you want to see like a real difference on your site is changing what's above the fold, meaning what does the visitor see before they scroll a little bit, like the very first thing they see when they click on your site. And depending on what call to action you have there, or like how strong that call to action is, that can have like really big, that can have a big impact, I guess.
Yeah, I like the answer, and also that you kind of, what can you say, inverse the questions a little bit to really see like, okay, rather than think like, okay, this because of it, rather think, what can you say, this did not happen because of a certain property or reason, stuff like that. So thank you for the, what can you say, insights that you brought here. So I want to switch gears a little bit to mention Ship 30. And for those of you who do not know what Ship 30 is, the last 3 episodes with Anders and Sam and Alex all mentioned Ship 30 for 30. So we're going to do it quite short in terms of definition. But I want to ask you your experience, how you found it, and also what Ship 30 and 30 has made an impact for you going forward.
Okay, so honestly, I don't remember how I found Ship 30. It was probably because I started to follow Nick sometime in the end of last year. And actually joining Ship 30 was quite a spontaneous decision, because it was the end of 2021 and I was reviewing my notes and I was like, okay, the overarching decision, like the overarching insight I have is, okay, I would like to take more risks. And I had never invested as much in myself before as I did with Ship 30. So that was like the main motivator for me. It was like to see firstly, how it would be to invest that amount in myself. Secondly, how I would respond to that. and see if, you know, sunk cost bias, like, would I be more likely to complete the task just because I invested money in it, stuff like that. So it was basically, I guess, like a bet. I was like, okay, I'll try it for 1 month. At the same time, I was into writing because I don't know what I want to do in 5 or 10 years. So that's also part why I decided to join like a writing course instead of like a marketing course or something like that. So what it has given me, I guess, most importantly, it's given me like friends and like new network. I've had like amazing one-on-ones with people all over the world, and I'm just astonished by like how much you can learn just from like having a one-on-one conversation with people. Also, I try to not be too much on Twitter, but like I like the positive vibe and like the positivity on Twitter. I'm not like one of those persons that loves to like every day just like positive stuff, but the people I follow, they put out like good stuff from Ship 30. Also, what it's given me is like the writing practice, because I've always wanted to get in like a daily writing habit, but honestly, I've struggled to do that. Like I've had my sprints, I would say, like 6 to 8 consecutive days where I've written like one email sample a day or something like that. But I hadn't really written daily like this before. I don't journal yet. Should start with that probably. So really like empowering me to do like daily writing and the network are the two main wins from Ship 30, but also that I found more confidence in my writing, because I gained so much like positive feedback from the people on Twitter, and I saw like so many other great essays, and I was like, okay, so these people, some of them, they have like a bachelor or like even a master in some university stuff, and they're like 45 or even 60 years old, and they are appreciating my work. So I was like, okay, if I can impress them, I probably can impress everybody, and my writing is of some value. So that gave me like really both like a confidence, but also like a little bit of a motivational boost, because I realized that somebody like actually cares about what you write. Somebody actually like puts down the energy to comment like, okay, this was great, this was not so great, like giving feedback. So yeah, like the confidence in my writing I gained from that was massive.
Yeah, and I can say too that I was very impressed by your writing as well when I found it on Twitter. So this was
Thank
one
you.
of the reasons why you came into the show, because I felt like you had many things to say to all of us, and we've all heard the evidence right now during the last 43 minutes or so. So I want to talk a little bit about like your writing and your topics, because one topic that I've seen a lot recently is, for instance, like decision making, which we can do a follow-up question on that. But do you have any other kind of interests that you specialize more? Maybe copywriting, since it sounds like you have a lot to say there that many people should probably hear.
Okay, so yeah, I'm 18, and that like I know I'm not an expert more than most people because I'm so young. My only advantage, I guess, is that I'm 18, but also it's also my disadvantage. I'm not.
But you have knowledge, and you can
I
spread
have
it, and then
I
you
have
can
some knowledge, but I'm still like
exactly.
a
That's
learner.
important.
But I guess many people appreciate when you are like, as Nick and Cole says, it's like when you're in second grade, you're not looking up to like the seventh graders. They are like adults. You're looking up to the third graders. You're looking at the people that are one step ahead of you. I don't have so much like in-depth knowledge about various topics, but because I've been working at the startup for 1 year now, and like I've tried to learn as much as possible, I know a thing or two about actually quite many things, if I can say it like that. It's I'm not like a T-shaped person. Like I don't have any like special competence. I'm more like a laying eye competence level, like low competence in many things, but yeah, I still have to achieve something, some more in-depth knowledge.
That's so humble of you.
Yeah, thank you. It's like, but it's how I'm looking at it right now. So actually, I've been thinking about how I want to brand myself in the future, because building a personal brand, it's basically putting yourself out there. And I guess I will try to get more into a direction of being like essentialist and being an essentialist copywriter. A book that really made like a big mark on me was Essentialism by Greg McNeon. I read it last fall when I was faced with so many like different stuff, like so many different activities coming like shot at me, and people were like, yeah, I do want to do this, and I wasn't really good at saying no. So I just had this experience of like being quite, like tired and busy, but not really. When I would look back at the weeks, I was like, okay,
everybody's
did I really
pulling on
achieve
you at once?
Yeah, but I can't really blame the others. It's more like blaming myself, because I wasn't able to say no. And like people, they don't really like, if I want to go to the gym with a friend of mine, he doesn't really care if I say no or not. It's just like a fun thing if I can join him, but it's not like the relationship depends on that, right? So it's just like the small things, like trying to say more no. And I see now for every day that I'm getting better at saying no, even though I'm not super good at it. But yeah, I really can recommend that book if you feel like you're busy and aren't like making the progress you want to make. So I guess I will try to brand myself as an essentialist copywriter, because I know my strength in writing is to be concise. And it's also something I've tried to niche down more on, because I know that like if we go back to what I said earlier in the pod, it's like conciseness is clarity. Like if you can write something concisely, you can write it with clarity. Meaning, if you have a concise and clear value proposition, that's top level. That's like a high level. And also, I think that the more educated or the more like professional your audience is, the more they appreciate like briefness, and the more they appreciate like conciseness. I guess it's about not conciseness isn't about like trying to fit as much information in, so like a short sentence as possible. Rather, it's about really seeing, like looking for what you have to tell, like what information doesn't even have to be in the sentence from the first place. Like people think they can learn to write concisely just by like taking many sentences and like trying to combine them by using like some cool language tricks, and like using some words and like linking words and stuff like that. And but it's like at the end, it's about like just saying what has to be said and nothing more than that, if that makes sense. So I guess that's the reason why concise writing is important, and also why it appeals to me, because I think it's both like I like to read concise content, and also I think it's incredibly strong, because I don't see so much concise content around there. However, if you read my essays, you can see that some of my essays are written more in like a personal way of like storytelling. I try to get better at storytelling, because I guess that's like the other important skill of writing. So in the beginning, I was writing like a robot, I guess. And then I got some comments like, okay, maybe a little bit more personality, like a German. Maybe I want to have a little bit more personality in my texts. And I was okay. So I started to incorporate more like personal comments, and like tried to have a little bit more fun when I was writing. And I'm still like trying to figure that out. Honestly, my last like 10 essays haven't been super great, because I've struggled a little bit. It has been like it's taking like a lot of mental effort to write them. It wasn't as easy as the first ones. So my current struggle is like, or struggle, it's my current project to get back to like writing effortlessly, and like exploring what topics I really enjoy writing about, and like just having a look at myself, like what troublesome experience while I try to write something, and like where the friction lies, like what, always like trying to find where I can do like the most effortless execution, something like that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the second book by the same author of Essentialism. It's also called Effortless. It's a book
Should read that.
Yeah, I read it like twice, and it's kind of shaped my like turn and philosophy about effortless productivity and stuff like that. So I want to pick up a little bit on essentialism and the experience you had with too much going on, stuff like that. And I guess that when it comes to decision making, you kind of learn from this experience. You can say like, okay, what can you say, most reliable frameworks, and how do you decide? And I guess it also comes down to the gut feel, but it's good to hear a little bit from there, since I've been most impressed with your decision essays.
I see. I'll register that as a data point and write more about decision making.
Do it.
But
or share data points with each other. It's free speech.
Yeah, many thanks. But like really, I wouldn't consider myself as somebody that is like really good at decision making. I'm like still exploring all of those like heuristics and frameworks to make decisions. Which is why one of my articles was about like Tim Ferriss and Naval Ravikant's, like how they make decisions, if they have like some frameworks you can use. Because I myself was looking at making decisions, and I was like, okay, this article I would probably want to read myself. So basically I wrote it for myself. But I don't have like my own decision-making framework. What I try to do right now is to like really implement the frameworks from like the ones I'm stepping up on Twitter and from Tim Ferriss and stuff like that. I try to implement them because I feel like I have a lot of like knowledge that is like knowledge, but I haven't implemented it. And like, you know, as you know, it's like knowledge without implementation is nothing. So that's what I'm thinking about right now. Something I found myself do more the last couple of weeks is doing the risk benefit analysis, like seeing, instead of thinking like pros and cons, like thinking back now, I think it's like quite a rudimentary way of, and like thinking pros and cons isn't really like a good way to determine if it's like a good, like what you should do in the situation, because you don't really assess like if the pros outweigh the cons or not. But like doing a risk benefit analysis is basically looking at, okay, what are the risks involved in this? Asking basically, can you limit the downside? Is there like, for example, if I were to start a company, the risk for me would be, okay, the money I put down and the time I put down. At the same time, if I like really invest my time meaningfully in it, I probably could learn something during the time. So the only risk I would have is like the money risk. And also, I guess, the opportunity cost, that you could do something better at the same time, but there's always an opportunity cost. And like the benefit would be learning lots, potentially earning money on it, and various kinds of other benefits like expanding network, getting to know new people, and probably also getting more to write about, like all those like small benefits. So that's something I've done more in my everyday life the last couple of days and weeks.
So I find it very fascinating to basically have the concept of teaching yourself, or rather teach out what you need to learn the most, because that's also a big reason why I produce articles, in order to really get this into my mind. For it's like, okay, if I want to learn something, I write something about it. And I guess that's a very good way of interpreting the world in that matter. So I want to ask you as the last question, or maybe second to last question, something I'm asking all guests, because we at Total Living is about living effortless life and stuff like that. So what are your best tips on living your best life, both right now and going forward?
Good question.
It's a big one, and that's the point.
Yeah.
Any answer come to mind, or okay?
Yeah, like for me, I guess I wouldn't really like to live like an effortless life. I guess like the work should be effortless in some way. For me, important for my general well-being is training, and I try to, like, as a child, you don't really, like, when I wasn't working, I didn't really understand how people could like stop caring about their body and like just going all in for work. Then I've also written an essay on this. I started working, and it was also during COVID, so like I sat like 8 to 12 hours a day for like 3 consecutive months, and that didn't really have a great effect on my posture and like my physical well-being. I prioritized like work and getting money over like my physical health, and that was a big mistake. So for me, I guess when the body is good, the rest is good. So like caring for it, and yeah, of course, I'm not like a super dietist. I eat what I want largely, but I try to always like, okay, I know this sounds like maybe a little bit cringy, but like considering your body like a good friend of yours, because many people are like, okay, the body and myself, we're the same thing. But at the same time, you have to realize that the actions your mind takes affect your body, and also how your body feels affects your mind. We all know it when we have like, maybe, I guess you also have such a moment when you have like, okay, this afternoon I want to do really productive work, and then your body suddenly is like, no, today you need to rest. And there's nothing you can do about that unless you have like an essay with like a deadline until tomorrow. Then you have to force it through. But it's still like the body has such like an important role in how your mind feels. So just like helping your body and investing like time in yourself, and time and money in yourself and your food and activities, that's important. Also, I would say it's important to have like just like a rough picture of what you really want to do, like what really is important for you in your life. Like if I don't know what's important for me, I can never say, okay, this week I spent a lot of time on this. I don't know, like you don't have like a reference. Like you're like, okay, last week I was 60 hours in school, I spent 12 hours with my family, I worked out for 5 hours. But I'm like, okay, so is that how I want to live my life, or is it not? And to be able to assess that, you have to have some form of clarity. Like I don't know what I want to be in 10 years. However, I know like my core values right now, and how I want to spend my time right now. So if I look at the week and I'm like, okay, this week I spent way more time studying and maybe like working than I want to do, or like I didn't spend as much time with my family as I want to do, then I should probably like change that. And like always, yeah, I guess this all comes down that like reflecting is important. So 1 week ago I planned like my upcoming 6 weeks or so, and what I will try now is like really setting aside like a 2 hour time frame every Sunday, just for like reflection time and like preparing myself for the next week. I love Mondays because it's always like I push myself on it. I go up early, I like take a shower, I feel strong, I feel energized, I feel good looking. So you're like, I'm ready to get stuff done, like I'm ready to attack this week. So yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a lot of good advice right there. And it's always good to remember, like, okay, if you have a punctured card, no matter how much you want to go to destination, you still can't drive. So it's good to take care of your own personal vehicle, which is the body. So with that, I want to say as the really last question, where can
Yes.
people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Nils Liedlich. That's NILSLIEDLICH. I don't know any person that hasn't misspelled my last name the first time they heard it. So I guess we probably need to put this in the show notes too.
Yes, you
but,
don't need, for all of you listening, you don't need to spell the name necessarily, because you can just click a link and then you come to, according to me, the most impressive 18-year-old I've ever met. So with that,
Thank you.
I want to really say thank you so much for taking your time, and I look forward to see you again very soon.
Thank you for having me, Oscar.